What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, please jump on over to DJLittleRock.com. Come on by. The water's fine. I don't know. If it's a pool party, maybe the water's fine. Check availability and get a free price quote, and maybe you can have me at your next event. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous? Use the hashtag What Makes You Famous and find it everywhere. What makes you smarter? Well, let's find out. Let's do it together right here on the program. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, Trump addresses new coronavirus testing guidance. President Trump spoke in the Rose Garden on Monday evening to address new coronavirus testing guidance. White House Task Force member Dr. Deborah Birx unveiled new plans to work with state and local governments to test and trace coronavirus cases. The plan calls on the private sector to develop further testing and depends heavily on state governors to develop their own plans for rolling out more widespread testing, seen as crucial to containing the virus. Quote, "The testing is not going to be a problem at all," end quote, Trump said. The United States now has recorded nearly 1 million coronavirus cases and more than 55,000 deaths. Trump predicted an increased total death toll of 60,000 to 70,000, but said there would have been many more if he hadn't blocked many travelers from China in the early days of the outbreak there. This is according to CBS News and The Washington Post. Number 2, New York cancels its Democratic presidential primary. New York election officials on Monday canceled the state's Democratic presidential primary, saying it wasn't worth the risk during the coronavirus crisis to hold what would be, quote, essentially a beauty contest, end quote. The move came after Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont, suspended his campaign and endorsed former Vice President Joe Biden, now the Democratic presumptive nominee. Sanders had hoped to continue picking up delegates in the remaining contest to give him more influence over the party's platform. Sanders harshly criticized the decision to make New York the first state to cancel its primary, calling it an, quote, outrage, end quote, and a, quote, blow to American democracy, end quote. Governor Andrew Cuomo, Democrat, had already delayed the primary from April to June due to the pandemic. This is according to the New York Times. Number 3, U.S. excess deaths soared early in coronavirus crisis. The United States recorded about 15,400 more deaths than normal during the early weeks of the coronavirus epidemic, according to an analysis of the federal data conducted by Yale School of Public Health researchers for the Washington Post. The excess deaths were nearly double the 8,128 coronavirus deaths reported during March and through April 4th. The research did not conclude that the deaths were all directly attributable to the COVID-19 coronavirus. Some could have been people who died because they were reluctant to seek medical care for other illnesses due to the coronavirus outbreak. But the Post said that the high number of deaths compared to typical figures for the same period provided a better picture of the overall impact of the pandemic. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 4, White House suspends daily coronavirus briefings. The White House on Monday suspended the coronavirus task force daily briefings, although it said they would resume later in the week with a new focus on plans for carefully ramping up the economy again after weeks of lockdowns. Quote, but I would not read into that anything that said we see them as negative because, in fact, we think that they have been a very positive, helpful opportunity for the president to speak to the American people, end quote. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany said. The decision came after a flurry of criticism over President Trump's musings during a Thursday briefing about whether COVID-19 could be treated with disinfected injections. The next day, he said the comments were sarcastic. In a White House news conference Monday, Trump brushed off responsibility for anyone who may ingest disinfectant as a result of his comments. This is according to Reuters. Number 5. 2 people partially corroborate Biden's accusers' allegations. A former neighbor told Business Insider that Tara Reade, who says former Vice President Joe Biden sexually assaulted her when she worked for him as a Senate aide in 1993, told her about the allegation in 1995 or 1996. Quote, she was crying, end quote. The former neighbor, Linda LaCase, said, quote, she was upset, and the more she talked about it, the more she started crying. I remember saying that she needed to file a police report, end quote. A former colleague who worked with Reade in the California State Senate said Reade complained to her about mistreatment by her former employer, although the woman, Lorraine Sanchez, said she didn't recall if Reade revealed details. Biden's communications director, Kate Bedingfield, said women have a right to, quote, tell their story, end quote, but, quote, these allegations are false, end quote. This is according to Business Insider. Number 6, more states ease stay-at-home orders to let some businesses open. Governors in a handful of states from Mississippi to Montana allowed some non-essential businesses to reopen for the first time in weeks on Monday, despite warnings from experts that there wasn't enough testing to contain the coronavirus yet. Georgia, Texas, Michigan, Hawaii, and Alaska were among the states that have allowed some businesses to resume operations. California Governor Gavin Newsom, Democrat, said his state was still weeks away from easing its stay-at-home order. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Republican, said his state would let stores, restaurants, movie theaters, and malls reopen with limited capacity on May 1st. Some health experts warned that some states were easing restrictions too early, saying that could extend the crisis and push up the death toll. This is according to CNN and Reuters. Number 7, routine medical tests plummet during coronavirus crisis. Routine medical tests critical for cancer and other conditions dropped sharply across the United States over the last 5 weeks under stay-at-home orders imposed to curb the spread of the coronavirus, according to a report released Monday by data firm Komodo Health. Diagnostic panels and cancer screenings typically done during annual checkups have fallen by as much as 68% since mid-March. Such tests and checkups and the medical care related to them provide key revenue for healthcare systems and help catch disease in early stages when it's more treatable, reported Komodo, which has one of the largest medical claims databases in the country. This is according to Reuters. Number 8, report. Trump received numerous coronavirus warnings in classified briefings. President Trump received more than a dozen classified briefings from U.S. intelligence agencies warning about potentially devastating political and economic fallout from the COVID-19 coronavirus in January and February, the Washington Post reported Monday. Citing current and former U.S. officials, the information about the spread of the virus was presented in the president's daily brief, a sensitive roundup produced to alert the president to the most significant global security threats. The warnings, quote, appear to have failed to register with the president, who routinely skips reading the PDB, end quote, and downplayed the virus threat into late February, the Post reported. A White House spokesperson disputed the suggestion that Trump responded slowly, saying he, quote, rose to fight this crisis head on by taking early, aggressive, historic action, end quote. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 9, Trump says he knows Kim Jong-un's health status. President Trump on Monday said he knew North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's health status, which has been the subject of rampant speculation recently. Trump said the world would find out more, quote, in the not too distant future, end quote, although he declined to provide details. Quote, I can't talk about it now, end quote. He said, quote, I just wish him well, end quote. Media outlets, starting with the South Korea-based news site Daily NK, started reporting on April 20th that Kim was in critical condition following cardiovascular surgery. The speculation came after Kim disappeared from public view, missing a key holiday on April 15th. South Korea's Minister for North Korean Affairs said Tuesday that Kim might have entered isolation to avoid coronavirus infection. This is according to Bloomberg and CNBC. Number 10, Netflix releasing surprise documentary about Michelle Obama. Becoming, a surprise documentary film revolving around Michelle Obama and the book tour for her 2018 memoir is dropping next week, Netflix has revealed. The film was directed by Nadia Hallgren, and Netflix called it an, quote, intimate look into the life of former First Lady Michelle Obama during a moment of profound change, end quote. A first look at Becoming, released on Monday, focused on a discussion Obama held at a community event in Philadelphia. The Hollywood Reporter writes that the film was kept, quote, top secret for months, end quote. Barack and Michelle Obama in 2018 signed a production deal with Netflix. Becoming will begin streaming on Netflix on May 6th. This is according to the New York Times and The Hollywood Reporter. That's 10 things you need to know today for Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. Thank you for listening. This has been What Makes You Smarter. I hope you're doing reasonably well. If you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at Smarter What, and YouTube, username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/Keys Dan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening.